How's it going, you guys? Welcome to your morning cup. Now, India is one of the world's biggest democracies and also one of the biggest nations in terms of agricultural production. What we understand is the fact that 1.3 billion people exist in India, and half of those rely completely on agriculture and agricultural produce to, well, sustain themselves on a day to day basis. But here's the issue that India is facing as a whole today: water shortages, and water shortages the likes of which Indians have not comprehended on a scale that Indians haven't comprehended before. What we're looking at is the fact that more than 90% of Indian farmers are irrigating land and harvesting crops throughout the year. We're looking at summer harvests as well as winter harvests. And with global warming as well as climate change ensuing the way that it is, we're looking at a time and a place wherein water levels are drastically falling. But luckily, since the 1960s, Indian farmers ramped up their productions and started using tube wells. Now, tube wells allows them to use groundwater sources that are buried way deep underground. And Indian farmers figured out a way to make sure that they get access to this groundwater and then thereby irrigating their land throughout various seasons wherein surface water was really hard to come by. Well, issues started arising when groundwater levels started depleting to a level in which many tube wells started to run dry. Now, India is a nation that has faced numerous hot seasons over the years. Temperatures just keep rising every single year. And now, with the summers encroaching us as we speak, we understand the fact that the future of Indian farmers is very bleak in terms of their capabilities of farming and irrigating their land. We also understand the fact that if this water source is depleted to the point in which Indian farmers can no longer gain access to it, we are looking at 20% of production dropping overall, as well as 68% of production dropping in those that are severely hit. So places that are more severely hit in terms of their access to water will be completely wiped clean. We have less than 30% of produce that's going to be left for them to either sell and gain some funds or to consume and sustain themselves. We're looking at a point wherein water is turned into a commodity, as it always was. Now it's more prevalent than ever before, and we're going to look at a future wherein water holds more economic value than gold. You see, the earth is supposedly full of water, but usable water and sustainable water is still something that most of us find hard to gain access to. And farmers, well, they require ginormous amounts of water to make sure that the crops that they're growing are well irrigated. And with the United Nations openly dictating the fact that the world is going to see temperatures rising at a scale that we have never seen them rise before, with every concurrent summer season coming, it's all the more concern in the aspects of droughts. And if droughts are a thing that become very prevalent, we're looking at farmers that are going to be facing the blunt of this issue. Now, not just India, but farmers across the globe are facing issues with water supplies and water sources. Some farmers are relying completely on desalination plants to make sure that they provide them with some amount of water that they can then sustain themselves with. But desalination plants are only going to be possible for those farmers that are relatively closer to the shorelines. The further inland you get, the more exposed to the elements you are. And the flatter your surface area is in terms of where you might reside, the worse it gets for you. You see, tube wells were an answer way back in the day, and now people are saying that people should switch over to canal irrigation. But canal irrigation has got its own set of drawbacks. What we're looking at today is the fact that there is no significant answer to the question of how do we solve the farmers' issues when it comes to providing them with the right amount of water. Water is an absolute necessity for the farmers to be able to grow the produce that is so near and dear to their existence, and is near and dear to the existence and sustenance of our civilization as a whole. You see, without the produce being put out by the farmers, sooner or later the markets and the stores are going to run dry, and that is when we actually face the blunt of the situation as a everyday Joe. Why? Because if companies start to step in, they're going to start ramping up costs. And why will they start ramping up costs? Because it's going to cost them all the more money to be able to produce half of what they were earlier getting by the farmers themselves. We move on to the fact that the WHO's Covax program is now officially launched. And the WHO's Covax program was one of its most ambitious ventures in affiliation with UNICEF. What we understand today is the fact that the UNICEF director has said that this is an array of hope, with the WHO Covax program finally launching and Ghana being the first nation to receive the COVID vaccine under the program. Upwards of 600,000 doses were sent from Kolkata, India. The AstraZeneca vaccines production hub being the Serum Institute of Technology in Maharashtra. The vaccines went from Maharashtra to Kolkata and from Kolkata all the way to the capital of Ghana. And finally, a country that has been neglected left, right, and center when it comes to COVID 19 precautions and when it comes to COVID 19 vaccinations can now get on board with the vaccination train and start to at least vaccinate its frontline workers and its healthcare officials. We're looking at nations across the globe like Ghana that have completely been neglected left, right, and center. And the initial onset of the COVAX program was only to make sure that no nation on the face of the globe is left without the vaccine. Because even if one single individual in one single nation is not vaccinated to the point in which they can then spread the coronavirus further, we're looking at a place and a time wherein it is going to be next to impossible to eradicate this disease, and we really need to eradicate this because the economies across the globe are facing the maximum blunt of this issue. You see, the pandemic and the lockdowns that are ensuing are just crippling economies left, right, and center. People are losing their jobs, people are losing sustainabilities, people cannot put food on the table. And if we do not take things seriously and if we don't understand the severity of these issues, we are going to be lagging behind at a scale that is only going to be witnessed in the history books when people write about how poorly we dealt with this pandemic in the year 2020 and 2021. If we don't get on board with making sure that we completely eradicate COVID 19, we are going to be dealing with this pandemic 5 years down the line. It's not going to go away by just hoping and praying that it does. Preemptive actions needed to be taken, but they never were. But now that they are being taken, we need to hop on board. We need to make sure that we spread the word, spread the right information, and make sure that you do your due diligence in terms of your parts that you can play to make the lives of those that might not necessarily know any better safer. With that being said, we understand that there is a lot that happens in the world on a 24-hour cycle and the news never takes a break. But rest assured, we will keep you updated on everything that the world has to offer. If you want to stay tuned for an unbiased source, make sure you stay onto this space. Click on that subscribe button and click the notification bell to be notified every single time a new news update is posted onto this channel. Until then, this has been your morning cup. I'll see you tomorrow.